so we're gonna call this one to order, and we don't have a roll call because we are doing this ad hoc. And I want John Fuhrer to sort of address the scope of the work and the charge for this group, short term and longer range. What? Public comment? Would anyone like to make a comment? Okay. We're good. Okay, John.
Are we, okay. So, the focus of this is obviously we're seeing the numbers come in. They got some numbers, fairly high value there. But we've known this is a better than $150 million problem if we want to do everything we'd like to do. That's where this becomes a challenge. Where it's become, this group hopefully can be a little more productive than the group of 30 at that time. The goal of that, the way I see this playing out, this is definitely open for debate, but the way I see this playing out is there's things in each model that, for lack of a better way, I would call it fluff. It's above a line. The line is our values, what you as a collective group believe would be the bottom line. You would see that model qualifying as a quality model that meets most of the engagement, most of your values, most of whatever is going to be the next feedback we get. Something you think would hand off, and that's a value that you're going to give to that model. That could be 140, it could be 150, whatever. Things you're not sacrificing too much to get to that point. Everything that's above that would be considered above the line, for lack of a better way to say it. It's fluff. Stuff, it's an admin center over here that isn't incorporated over there. It's Oak Terrace getting more upgrades than everybody might need today. Whatever we deem that to be, I'll call it some of the obvious ones. And then there's the stuff below the line, the stuff that starts to get into or challenge the value system of this group. And what are those? And how do we start to evaluate those items below that line? Are they global items? Is it all AC is off the table? All ADA off the table? Is it a surgical approach of, we talked about no gym, get AC, no bathrooms, get AC? Do we talk about no Ravinia, no Winnie Thomas get touched at all? It's just these 6 schools or these 8 schools get the full upgrades at this capacity. That's the philosophical things that you guys need to collectively talk about and try to put a value system or a ranking. I'm just picking on the bottom line stuff that Nagel brought, or that Gilbane put down here, the obvious ADA fires for those items. How would you rank them? How, if you're going to do them globally, how do you value them? Which order do you put them in? And if you can't deal with any of those, then okay, what are your surgical options? And how do you value those? And how do you rank those values? Those options. So that's what this group's charter is, if you will. So it's not getting into architectural operations of the buildings. It's not getting into the design. It's not getting into flows, efficiencies. We're not trying to find a $40,000 fix over here. This is more philosophical about how would you guys be willing to ask the community these judgments and test them that way. Does that make sense?
Is there something what about something like looking at the plan, the drawings, kitchens and in multi-purpose, kitchens adjoining multi-purpose rooms?
Yes.
Is that an architectural one or more of a?
No, that's more of a. Do you want kitchens?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Are there kitchens in these models? I think back. Look, I remember.
A bunch of them have. Some do.
They might have them.
Yeah.
Do you take that out? That's probably
it's
$1 million item,
yeah.
but it's there. It could probably be an ask.
Mm-hmm.
I know where that price stands for some of the passport where that's good, but again, we're not here to apply that value. It's put it on the list.
Yeah.
And let the group evaluate that. This group's not the decision making. It's the idea creating out of how you guys have done the work in the past. And you're going to bring this work back to the large group and say, kind of the heat map process we did. You kind of broke off into subgroups, applied the values, and brought it back to the group and said, yes or no. You guys agree with that ranking. We hammered through that, we got through it. But we had somebody kind of get that first pass to start that discussion. Otherwise, we start at ground zero on all these, we get nowhere. Yes,
on the stuff that's towards the bottom, I didn't understand. Can you eliminate the electrical and lighting service but not eliminate the HVAC, or is the HVAC dependent on electrical upgrades at the schools? Are those things sort of like, is one dependent on the other?
There would be a P.
I was going to say, the way that this was broken out, I think it was more simple for how the spreadsheets were put together, but the real way it probably should be is the lighting should be up with the sprinklers. That's kind of what we've been lumping together, because if we're gonna pull down the ceilings and put sprinklers up, we're gonna have to replace the lights, because the lights are basically gonna.
But then what's the electrical service upgrade
That's
component?
actually associated with the HVAC, so that's associated with the AC. So, the way, this was, again, a quick way for, Carl to make the spreadsheet work easier, but at the end of the day, that was one of my notes, is that we should have this.
So the HV numbers might
Split
be,
it in half,
Well,
or
the
not
electrical
necessarily
service
half,
is
but
not as substantial as the lighting. The lighting would definitely be the bigger part of that number, where the electrical service is associated with the new power needed for the AC systems. So we can revamp this, and that was one of my notes that I.
But are we talking, Dan, $1 million ballpark, $2 million ballpark per, just as a, I'm not using the conversation. Huh?
I heard 3.
So if you said this 11,500,000 for both, I would say 3/4 of that is the lighting.
About 3.
For just conversation point right now.
Okay.
That's fine, so it's a few million,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a few million bucks. Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Well, we get that cleaned up, but again, we still have enough here to talk about philosophically, because how does that still value or don't value that number? That's Jim.
I'm still a little confused about how the green report relates to this. I remember way back reading the green report, good reading. The things that are still yet to be done, are those in your base numbers? Or where is the green report in relation to these numbers?
Dan, but the green report is still in this bottom number.
Everything that's in the green
For
report
20
that hasn't been done yet.
To 2025.
Is that a philosophical question we need to answer? To what extent we want to be using this project as an opportunity to do work that would be part of normal annual maintenance work the next 7 or 8 years versus doing one-time projects that are part of this, to do specific upgrades to the building, such as air conditioning, things like that. That might be something to talk about.
I'm still
So as far as the estimate goes, the green report, when there's HVAC, which is a substantial, probably at least half of it is HVAC related. So when we we're gonna redo the HVAC in this school, we discounted what the green report, so we deducted that out of it. So at the end of the day, if we're gonna redo all the HVAC, we know that the green report, HVAC portion gets taken, that the dollar amount gets
the
taken
stuff
out.
that was in the green report, you figured in the basic, number for the green
So we took that,
report
yeah.
amount that's not gonna have to be spent.
So we incorporated that into the estimate for HVAC. The other portions are like site work, breaches, or roofs, or whatever we didn't do anything.
There's other great work that you're not including, right? That doesn't incidentally fall into the
Right.
project, so.
Right.
As I recall, John, the green report prioritized priority 1, priority 2, priority 3.
Green report is a pure life cycle budgeting tool. Is what that is. It's a life cycle of equipment.
The things that could be put off till later,
That's health, life safety.
that's what?
There is, no, the green report is a life cycle on that equipment. Could you get more out of that equipment? They were put in 5-year buckets. So from 15 to 20, 20 to 25, 25 to 30, whatever fell within that life cycle 5-year window was included in that bucket. So if boilers or window systems or roof systems, had a 20-year, 25-year life, they lifed out at, from 25 to 30, that would not be reflected in this budget. It's not about pushing out or pulling forward, it's just pure life cycling of that manufacturer's item and what year it falls. So you kind of budget.
Let me make sure I understand that. When you said, let's say there were some things in the HVAC that didn't have to be done in the green report for 10 more years. Would you have included that in the basic, or was that still left in the green report?
So essentially, our estimates include replacing, besides at Oak Terrace, replacing all the HVAC. So, you know, it's probably gonna be a different system, or, you know, it's not gonna be using the same equipment.
So relative to the Green Report, you're resetting the bar for the building on HVAC. So you'd be taking away anything within the 30-year, 40-year window, or 2030, 2040, that would be taken off the table, because you would have reset the table at the 2020 year. Because you wouldn't replace 3 univents and not the other 3. You're gonna replace the whole system, because the other 3 aren't gonna work with the new system.
Remember, I was on the committee for the high school where we went through systems
Yep.
in detail. There's systems, all costs. Energy efficient systems, some that are not, some that are cheaper.
But that's getting into the minutia, Jeff, at this point. We're not even close to that yet.
Well, what I'm asking is the dollar amount that you've put in, is that a top of the line? Is it the middle? Is it a low end?
It's comparable to what we did at the high school. So it's
Which
an
was
efficient
what?
model, it's a VRF system with a dedicated outside air system. So, but this may be a little bit different of a system, but we build in a little bit of flexibility, but it is a similar cost per square foot as what we.
But how would you characterize it? Is it a middle of the road? Is it a?
It is a less expensive and it's a very flexible system, which is good for classrooms because one side might need heating and the other might need to be cooling. And that's why, you know, a lot of schools use it. But yeah, I'd say it's middle of the line cost-wise. You know, in some different types of systems, it may be looked at as a less expensive system.
I would take that approach across all these, Jeff. I wouldn't get into, there's no terrazzo being put in, there's none of that stuff being evaluated. It's kind of the same building blocks that we're using in the middle school campus. All these materials are nominal in the middle of the road. Is there room to debate them? Possibly, but that's a value system we'll get into down the road when we have actual projects that we're going to do. When we have an architectural advisory committee. That's when we get into that kind of nuance about the detail of the system. Right now, we want to make sure we're comparing apple to apple between each model. That each, to Dan's point, the philosophy is applied equally to all these. We don't want to get into whether we should go up or down with it, because that's, we can say each one's $1. It doesn't matter.
But they're not
Are
like
they all
Rolls
$1?
Royce type of.
Yeah, none of this is Rolls Royce materials, none of this is Rolls Royce equipment. It's all modestly middle of the road items. Again, can some of that be debated? I'm sure, but that's not what's going to help us here today.
Now, Alex's question was different, though, wasn't it?
Well, I guess, you know, just thinking about what you're saying with these numbers, like, for example, if you're, you know, you have a subtotal of, you have a number for renovation degree report for 2025 for each of these models. Conceivably, that number is different depending on whether we do some of these other upgrades, right? Like that number that's in there assumes it had already taken out, for example, each of the HVAC, or the HVAC comes out. So, you know, the question is, does that, you know, have we pushed enough things with some of these projects out of the green report already, to the extent that it's not necessarily, we don't necessarily need to be doing additional work as part of this project. We can just continue to life cycle them as we would normally. Like, what at what point, you know what I mean? Like, where are we at in terms of how much we're actually pulling forward?
We're not pulling anything forward. There's only a little bit that's being duplicated with the HLS work. I think we're probably $5 million of it. Now, all part of that's roofs at this stage, if I had to guess where the numbers are. So there's not a lot of work coming forward. If I remember right, Dan, you might be able to, these old timers, I want to say we were in the 39 million range for the first 5 years of HLS. That's across the board. With I think 21 million of that just on the 4 buildings we were going to close last year. So we have a health, just round numbers, I mean very global, in that 40-50 million range in the very early stages, just because we've not done things for so long. We have a heavy front 10-year window.
Right.
So that's part of why we've always kept including it, making it part of the bond rate. There's such a volume and heavy cap.
I think it was 40 million, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's a big hit up front. So if we don't capture it, we weren't going to be saving enough on the operational side annually to say, well, that's going to be our contribution and pick it up in the operational side, because we weren't going to be able to get $8 million a year, whatever the number had to be, $5 million.
I guess just, it's, and I think I understand this, I think all of us do, but I think it's gonna be confusing for people who are coming to a forum to look at this and say, okay, the district is gonna try and save money operationally by closing buildings and by doing some of these one-time upgrades, but we're also rolling a lot of those operational, like these capital costs that we're doing as part of the operations into these numbers that we're seeing here. And I worry that people are gonna come and see that and not see that there's those savings that we're getting and that there's that potential again for district operational funding put into this. I like, as I look at this, that's not necessarily clear that that's what's happening.
But are we really showing the people these numbers, or we're kind of like summarizing for them so they can get, because nobody's gonna understand
I would envision
this.
only we're showing a summary of bullet point component items we want to capture as either benefits or cost savings or below the line, how we're going to show them, but just
Right.
bullet point.
But if
But
someone looks at this
Alex-
and says, okay, well, and I don't want to, I mean, oh, it's not really a bond of 170 million because we're actually pulling X amount forward from green. You know what I mean? Like that's all kind of baked into this thought process here. And I just don't know that. I worry that if we were going to show people a number like this, that's not the case.
So I would like, I think you raise a very good point, and I'm worried about that too. And I'm just wondering how we can capture that in like a question or a chart or a positioning that would be part of like the finance station at the forums, like how we can address sort of what are the pieces that go into this funnel? You know, so we have the different components for the models that we're going to talk about at the stations, but in terms of like where the district piece is versus how this becomes a bond or doesn't become, like, and then how the operational piece works. If anybody here wants to kind of think about how we can capture what you're saying in a way that is a.
Can I ask a certain question? I don't know if I'm flippant about this, but if it's green or it's HLS or it's, if Rick wants to, if we believe that's a cost that owed to that school because of deferred whatever reasons, or it's new HLS, whatever the source, do we need to get into the minutia of advertising that source? Does that help? And I'm not trying to hide it, I'm just asking the question. If Braeside needs $10 million and Ravinia needs 15 because of whatever sources are making that money up, do we need to get into trying to break it out and be caught up in trying to explain something that at the end of the day, it's still going to be $10 million and $15 million?
I don't think you need to in a general sense, but I think if anybody actually came at you and asked you for specifics.
I'm not saying you don't have all this data.
Right.
But I'm talking about like for the community forum, you're trying to just educate people on the what, the why, and here's the big dollars and what.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna know what HLS means. I don't think they're gonna know what green report means.
I'm asking,
I
are we
still
doing
don't
ourselves a
know
disservice by trying to?
So, they're
But I mean,
not-
can we set
Yeah.
up some type of an equation that shows, maybe not necessarily green report and HLS, but an equation that kind of shows this plus this plus this gets you to
I'm not,
your referendum number or your bond number.
I worry that people are going to look at these cost numbers.
That's
So
my
what would you want to
question.
do differently then?
Well, I would want to net that stuff out, or if we're going to show people numbers. Are we going to show people numbers?
The thing I really like about the bond is it's very granular. We can say, $25 million buys air conditioning, 8 million buys sprinklers. The one thing, and maybe we solve this by doing, is essentially, what are we buying for the 2/3 of the budget that's on the upper half? If you look at the detail, it says interiors. People will sort of like, say, well, what does that mean?
Well, we can have a five bullet point description of what, the high level.
Just big chunks of what are we buying for $150 million, just so people can swallow it. Because air conditioning's an easy one to see.
And I put bullet points to that for this meeting because I expected you guys to say, well, what is the $100 million?
Yeah.
So it's the additions, it's the changes to the building for programming to make it work. The green report, the health, life, safety, and then all the bathroom.
Hey, John, I want to, we're trying to talk about cost reduction ideas, right? I feel like we're sort of caught up in like how we're selling, or not selling, how we're explaining this.
Yeah.
I want to just put a cost reduction idea out there that I touched on earlier. If we're not changing the physical footprint of a building, one cost reduction idea is to not do it. And I only identify one situation in one building, so I can't claim to have all the purview, know everything. But I noticed in one of these, we're not changing the footprint of Oak Terrace at all. Maybe there's health, life, safety, that's $500,000, but I would say one cost reduction idea is where we're not changing the physical footprint, don't do it.
And that was the point that I made earlier that Adam mentioned, is that the total cost that was going to be put into the Oak Terrace and the middle school campus referendum was about $1 million.
Yep.
It wasn't anywhere near this level.
Yeah, in Oak Terrace, we don't need to replace any of the vents, do we? So why is the air conditioning so expensive? A new compressor can't cost like $4 million.
Yeah, so we basically discounted, you can reuse all the ductwork and a lot of the piping,
For new area.
but you have to replace all the equipment. So all the equipment's getting to its.
Does it cost that much?
Yeah. Start
So you're saying we're getting to the useful age of that equipment, and so this has an extra many million
To replace all the.
Are there any other situations that you all can think of where we don't change the physical footprint of a building?
I can. Is there, in any of these configurations, where a building is on the verge of closing, but we keep it temporarily because populations today may be large enough to need it, but in a couple of years from now, if populations shrink, there's another building that's set to close. And I noted it because of the 10-building model, where we find ourselves with, we'll keep it open for a couple of years, but maybe we don't need it. Maybe that's a scenario where we don't put a dime into that building or cut out most of it, such that if we do close it later, the last thing we want to do is put money into a building that ultimately
I like that from an economic perspective. I think from a political perspective, it's a disaster.
Disaster.
Are
But
we talking about this building, or are we talking about like which?
This building might be the least disastrous.
No, this
Yeah,
one
I
might-
don't think
this-
anybody
this-
cares
This one
about
might,
this
but if
building.
you're thinking about an elementary school, but I think a better way, just an idea I had about cutting, either decide you're not going to do all this at the middle school level or at the elementary school level, and everyone's affected equally, and you say, you know what, we got air conditioning for this category. We didn't. Next time around, we'll take care of that.
Just to
I
that
think you
point
have to do
again,
it that way, because you can't have like 2 elementary schools that don't have air conditioning and everybody
Right.
else does,
Yeah.
because then
People-
they wouldn't be installed.
People might
everybody
understand
else would.
logically why that makes sense, and I completely agree with the logic there.
and that traditionally, what I've seen from peers who had that kind of approach is usually you put it where the kids are gonna go. So middle school gets it first, because that way everybody going there.
Gets
you
that
don't-
benefit.
You don't lose what you already had, you get
Right.
the benefit. Then the next phase is the next grade.
To say nothing of the fact that the age range makes it more appropriate for middle school.
What's sweaty teenagers?
I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question. I mean, I think we all have experiences where their kids I think if you had anybody who had kids who went to elementary school in District 112, they probably all had that experience where their kids had like weeks where there was just nothing.
Sweat.
People going in, and when we did the tour of the 12 buildings,
Yeah.
I was so surprised. At almost every building we were we were told they go to the principal's office, the teacher's lounge.
Yeah.
So, but I take your point though. I mean, the high school has air conditioning. Maybe that's the way you do it. Maybe you work down.
As far as I'm concerned, air conditioning is one of those things that absolutely should never be cut. So,
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I just think there's a dollar.
How many, of all the additions that are included in the renovation buildings,
We tried that.
you got any rough idea how many millions added?
So, and this kind of goes back to what the discussion was, are there any other buildings that don't have additions? So if you go for the estimate packet, there's page 5 and page 6 that go through and it gives the existing gross square foot and addition gross square foot at the top, and there's a handful, probably 10 different buildings that don't have any additions, but you can go through and see each one.
Here's my point.
That's how-
My point is, when we talked about early in the evening about new space standards versus existing space standards. If you put an addition onto a building, did you figure new building standards? Or did you figure
Yeah, for the square
classroom?
footage, yes.
Okay, so is there some significant savings by making the classroom size, for example, in the new addition, the same size as in the existing?
I would say probably for most of them, it wouldn't make a significant difference.
But the additions aren't that huge on most of these, so you're talking a couple classrooms, 4 classrooms.
Well, are we, okay, they're not, I didn't look at the plan.
My comment for the additions is if you look at that spreadsheet on 5 pages back, you can see how small some of them are. Some of them are 3,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet. If you change the class sizes a little bit on some of those, or more efficiently rework how you're gonna, have kids in classes, you can get rid of several of these additions because they're really small. And those have a lot of cost per square foot.
So it doesn't have much impact, you're saying?
There, I think if, if the
Not to do
schools,
like
if
per
the schools
room.
looked at it and said, okay, we can flip-flop this class and do, make these modifications, several of these additions probably could go away.
You refer, when we get into actually the operational evaluation, we're in the last few, we're gonna be evaluating, we got teachers in there looking at it, administrators. He's referring to, at that stage, we could probably maybe make a 3-room addition down to a 2-room, or maybe get rid of it entirely, or shift that program over to the school, where it's gonna have, we'll have that chance to get that level of evaluation out of it at that point. But to take out of a 3 or 4 room classrooms, take out 50 square feet, make it an 800 down to 750, we're not really changing the impact right now.
This is maybe not the exact topic that we're talking about, but it's an opportunity to hear from the financial experts. Could you just explain, let's say a referendum was passed for $100 million, or 125, 150.
Which one?
You're going to be spending that money over 4 years, right? So how does that affect the taxes? Does that 125 million go into a bank, and there's taxes paid on the 100, or interest paid on the 125 million, and you just draw on it as
Yes.
you use it, or how does that all work?
I think you just you issue the bonds in series and you try to match up. your
You issue the
Yeah.
bonds day one.
No.
Or you just show
You make a
up.
decision, that's a decision, right, yeah.
It depends on how you forecast interest rates. If you think the interest rates are gonna go up, you sell them on day one.
Right.
If you think they're gonna stay steady, then you don't sell them until you need them.
Right, I don't think District 113 didn't sell them all at once, they did.
Correct. You
Right.
sell them as you need them.
Yeah.
Because you're never selling like a 20-year, bullet, or whatever. It would be, everything's gotta be smoothed out in the payment. So what they do is they'll sell a bond that's got all the amortization in years 10 to 20. Then they'll wait a year or two and sell a short bond to fill in the gap. You know what I'm saying? So they try to match it up. And I don't think they sell it on, like all the scenarios we got from the investment bank, PMA, had the bonds being issued
Serial.
serially,
Yeah.
and matching it with the, which is.
So does it pay to get
That's
more
the
work
answer.
done in a shorter period of time, or not? To
Well, you have
lessen
escalation,
the-
because
Right.
defer.
Construction-wise.
I just don't think it's practical either, given the bidding and the summer. I mean, you can't get.
Yeah, there's a-
I mean, you
There's a
talked
limit
about
to how
doing
much
work
you can
only in the
compress the
summer,
time.
right?
Well, that would be, again, later in the game where we can really evaluate the selected option and say, how can we do this most efficiently? But yeah, you can't just do all of it one summer if you're renovating every building, There's just too much to bite off.
I have one other cost, maybe it's a cost display topic, but when you pay $600 more in property taxes, for people that itemize their deductions on their federal income taxes, you deduct that. And so your net out-of-pocket cost for those that itemize is only, that times 1 minus your marginal tax bracket, or say $450, not $600. So
If you can still deduct it.
If you
I-
can
I-
still
If there's no change in the tax law.
Well,
That's their-
I
that's the
understand, I
number one
understand
line.
that that's a Trump proposal, which is dead arrival. And there are some people in this community that take a standard deduction, and it doesn't matter. There are some people in this community who have phased out itemized deductions, and it doesn't matter either. But, what?
People-
AMT.
There are people in AMT also, but But it's not that same amount, that's the maximum.
Theoretically, yeah, I agree with
No,
you.
practically it's not, that's the maximum amount for everybody.
The problem is when you're describing this stuff to people, it really doesn't, it really doesn't get absorbed. For example, when we talk about the fact that on average, property taxes only go up by the rate of inflation, nobody believes that, even though it's true. Because they all think that, oh, mine have been going up way more than that. They haven't been, but there's no way you're going to convince them that they haven't been.
Well, the shares are being reallocated between you and your neighbors.
I understand, but there's a perception, everybody perceives that their taxes are going up at a huge rate, even though on average they are.
So,
And I have to tell you that my own clients, if I started saying, don't forget,
Yeah, we have like all.
this is being reduced by the tax savings that you are gaining, their eyes glaze over.
Best of
Yeah.
luck with that.
So,
So are we talking 20-year bonds? Is that what PMA is
Yes.
suggesting?
Well, what are we supposed to do tonight? 'Cause-
Well, I just go back to Brian's point about making this a cost reduction committee. Good idea. This is about ideas. This is about philosophies, and then also about ranking those philosophies.
Okay.
So,
so the one idea that I had was, should the green report numbers be included in this when we present it?
Well, what I was saying is, it's clear they should make sense to do them in the project. The question is how you want to represent the
It's
number.
presentation, right?
Right.
right.
So the question is, A, are we presenting numbers at the forum? And B, if we are, then why wouldn't we want to net out some of those numbers?
Because I
Because
think if
you can't rely on people thinking they'll recoup that later on through.
I think if we don't somehow, then people will see this as, someone could walk in and says, I know the district is sitting on a lot of money that they haven't spent on capital projects, and yet we're now being asked to roll future stuff to the bond issue. Why are we not spending money on that out of the operating budget? And the answer, there's an answer to that question, but we're not answering that here, and it's not, you know what I mean? So I
So the question is, what the number, is the number the project cost that you want to represent, or is it the referendum amount?
Right. But I'm saying, I don't think people are gonna know the distinction, people are gonna see the distinction.
well, and that, remember, this is about testing. This is not about making that decision here. It's about testing those, maybe those are two different test points.
I think Mark has the right question.
I'm sorry?
I think Mark has the right question.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want to test?
Well, the question is,
Isn't
you know,
the-
you want to focus
isn't one of the
people at the
purposes of
meetings
the
on the
forum
referendum amount
To get a reading.
or the cost of the project?
I think
Which
so.
may be a different.
People also want to know, like John said, if you eliminated, I'll pick it out, sprinklering, you could save $11 million.
Well,
How
that's-
else would you call that to their attention?
Well, that's.
To get a reading on how important sprinklering is to the community.
And I just also, just also tonight was really about to get our arms
Yeah.
around this idea, not
Right.
necessarily work through it all
Right.
tonight. Because tomorrow night you have a really good working session, and then this was about trying to get your head into the process of what this is about. So I don't want, we've already had, I intend this to be about a half an hour tonight, so we aren't here until God knows when. But just to get our heads around the idea, and I think you are getting the concept about trying to find ways, and how do we ask the question, how do we want to test it? Test it as a pro, test it as a con, you know, that was, to your point, I think it can be asked a few different ways. You know, we got to come up with how we want to ask those questions.
Well, my only concern with like just showing people this is they're automatically gonna be like, cut it, cut it, cut it.
Well, yeah, no,
cut
I
it.
agree, we shouldn't be showing, I don't believe we should be showing it just as a, maybe just check off what you want, give me a green marker yes, or a red marker for no.
I have just one mild observation from earlier, which gave me just a little bit of heartburn, was when we talked about the assumptions changing from 20 to 17 and from like 8 to 7.
The percentages?
Yeah, I you know, because then I can say, all right, then next time we, you know, is it next time we need to cut costs, we just drop that from 17 to 16? So it would be really good to know that we're sort of at the final answer there, and we don't get to sort of like bid against ourselves as another cost reduction strategy to change those assumptions.
It's not about that, it's not about cost cutting.
Whatever words you say, my perception is that we change the assumptions.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it would be really useful to know that we're at the final answer for those.
I see it as like,
The
this is a
assumptions-
microscope and you have the different lenses, and right now we're like at the big one.
Yeah, it's
And
just
we're gonna
the
go
process,
ching,
it's just the
ching,
point of the
ching.
process.
As you learn more, contingencies go down. That's just how it
They're getting
works.
shifted into knowns, they're coming out of the
Well, then I
unknown.
wouldn't call them assumptions, then but anyway,
Okay.
if we're the end point with those for now, then that's fine, but,
I mean, they're not gonna
as I
change
said, that
until we
just
get
gave me a
to
little
the
bit of
next-
heartburn on the cost.
Yeah,
And-
Yeah,
that's
determining
right.
contingencies is an art form for an estimate.
Right.
It really is.
That's why we have to obey.
I have
They do that.
I have one question.
It's-
When we say interiors is one of the things that's a line item under renovations and buildings, and it's, depending on the model, it's over $1 million, sometimes, 1.7, whatever, per building, for a lot of these concepts. How do we interpret those numbers for just interiors? Okay, those are new like painting walls, like that's
Well, we-
like an all-in number for a lot of different types of things.
Yeah, we can give an itemized list of what that means,
Okay.
what they're getting for that.
Okay, is that something that, and I'm just talking philosophically here, like, is that something, are those things, how do we perceive those expenses to rank against some of these bigger ticket things like the HVAC upgrade, the electrical system? Like
So a lot of those things are necessities. If you're you're replacing the ceiling, you're demoing the ceiling, we're gonna have to pay. And you're taking out that HVAC unit that sits on the ground, we're gonna have to patch the floor. So that's what a lot of that is.
So a lot of that is not independent projects, it's a cost associated with something that we got in-house, right?
To figure out what initiatives.
Yeah, I guess maybe to simplify, you can't say I won't do interiors, but I'll do sprinklers. Because you're gonna have a good portion of interior with you.
So we're just trying to summarize exactly what our goals are here. So this committee is supposed to come up with questions to ask, right?
Questions to ask, ideas, and prioritizing between them and how.
So
we-
like, an example might be that if you don't see Ravinia or Brayside or whatever school in that building existing today, in the long-term scheme of our district, do you value putting central air into that building? Or do you value maybe putting window units on the second floor?
But I would say you don't have to associate it to a school.
Right. So if you don't see a school being in the long-term projection of the school district, do you value putting in a high-stream HVAC system in that school?
Or said differently, if you don't see a school surviving past the medium term, are you willing to go for several years without it having the same
Without having all-
level of improvements as the other buildings?
Well, are we
get?
framing questions for,
Right.
we're not
Does that make
framing
sense?
questions for the
Board members.
forum.
Huh?
We're really framing questions to bring to our larger group and to go
Close it
back.
later?
Right.
But it's
These
a
questions-
legitimate
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
it's a good question.
Yeah, but then that's when he has to decide which.
No, to Dan's point here, yeah, we can help frame the question, but that's not our core goal. The core goal is to come up with the ideas, and the larger group will say yes or no to that, or agree to the question. If you frame the question, that's great, but the goal is really to get the ideas down on paper first. What are they between now and next?
The
Getting
idea
excited, that's
being,
not, right.
like, in that example, the idea being
Yeah.
that you do not put air conditioning
And if
in.
you have the example question, put it in there, we'll
Yeah.
collect those and we'll.
Wait, kidding aside, if you have a long-term vision and you say, look, we think eventually it makes sense to have a new southeast elementary school, does it make sense to put all of these things into Brayside and Ravinia? That's a fair question.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the vision that comes out of, if there's a plan that has that vision, right?
In other words, a plan that's sort of half-baked, like.
Well, has it long-term,
You're
right?
not
It's a
gonna
long-term, it's a long-term.
accept
vision.
it.
But what is your
But,
definition of long-term, Dan? Is it 5 years? Is it
20
25
years,
years?
yeah, 20, yeah. You'd have to enumerate that, but like,
Yeah.
let's say 20 years from now, you think in the next 20 years, it would make sense for you line up all your reasoning and say it would make sense as a long-term vision for the district. We can't do everything at once. This seems to make sense. Would you be okay with that? That's possibly something you could ask.
For air conditioning, 20 years is almost the life cycle of
Yeah.
the unit anyway, so.
10 years.
I would say 10
You know,
years.
10 years, but maybe that same concept goes for additions. If populations are, I don't remember what the data was, but I remember under BDR 3, some of the schools were real tight at first, and then there was a
Next year's tight,
a
then the year
reduction
after.
after that. Would that apply to doing any or deferring any additions? Where
We
we
talk
could-
about class size. Are we gonna increase
Class size, or could we defer some additions, maybe live with a little bit tighter class size temporarily, but over a couple of years, we're now, more generously sized?
Could we fit
if
with
you
a
have
tight,
flexible
we live with a
boundaries,
tight
you can do that.
Ravinia with 3 sections in it for 5 years, if we're thinking that in 10 years, it's going to be half empty again?
Well, we're still talking about the original forecast of a 375 to 450 per grade level and 19 sections. I still think that's a valid number. So if we start talking about, well, if things go really down,
If that's a valid number, then
Yeah,
that
then
might
we work with that.
I would receive.
Yeah,
but
I think it was the
feel-
speculation of
No,
whether the
no.
population would go up or down.
If the
or-
19 sections still accommodated the drop.
yeah, within the
then-
375 and the 450,
Then-
the
yeah.
19 was a number
Yeah.
that seemed to work.
Okay.
It was nice, because the amount of contraction and
Yeah.
expansion
Okay, good.
was a
Games
small
are good.
And I'm
amount.
glad we picked
Your
19.
standard deviation was a
And
reasonable
that's the
one.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're hitting
19 seems, based on 375 to 400, doesn't 19 seem high?
375 to 450.
Oh, to 450.
And 408 is this year's, what, first grade?
But, so we understand that's what we're trying to
Yes,
come up
trying to
with.
ask questions about what concepts or ideas do you ask, and then how do you want to value them against each other? Because at some point you're going to prioritize them, or ask prioritizing questions.
Like, do we want to go 88, 100%? Or can we say, hey, let's try for 75% ADA compliance around our
Yep.
buildings, you know?
FF&E is probably one of the simplest teacher had around.
Right.
We budgeted for all of it, it's probably excessive at the end of the day. We're willing to go down 50%, we're not sacrificing the core beliefs we want.
Right.
Whatever that number is.
I think that question that you were asking is a fair one to say, is that is 19 sections the right answer, or should we be building for 18 sections now? And if we ever get back up above 425 or 450, then we find a way to, we have to reboundary maybe, but then we find a way to add some more classrooms on.
But we're incorporating bubble space in each of these buildings in these models.
I can't hear you. What?
Sorry, we're incorporating bubble space in each of these models in terms of having extra classes per grade.
Maybe we should, maybe that's something, maybe that's a value we should eliminate, or a discussion point for cost reduction.
To not have space for the extra class
That's
per
tough,
grade
because
level.
that then pushes you into rebounding like that.
Right.
Every
Which
year.
makes it a school board
Well,
issue.
And
actually-
it
It's
also
all
raises the
the
specter of trailers.
Actually, that's something that's come up with Jane and Ed, and in their districts, they've had a lot of permissive reboundering, so.
What
you
is
can think-
permissive reboundering? What is it?
Basically, you can say, we have some extra space, let's say, at, I don't know, Sherwood or whatever.
And so if you're interested in
And
going to
if you're
Sherwood-
going to Sherwood, and there could be reasons people would want to do that, and you see people volunteer to do it, and then you have excess, you have a lottery or whatever, and they said this worked quite well.
Who are Jane and Ed?
There are interim
This is-
superintendents.
They're
Yeah.
superintendents.
So that's going on at Sherwood? Are they?
No,
They've done that in their districts in
Oh,
Schaumburg,
they've done-
and I forget the other
I got
district,
you.
the other district that
Well,
Jane
so
worked.
let me just play with this just for one more moment as a cost reduction idea. So I don't know how this works cost-wise, but suppose we kept ourselves at, say, 18 sections for half the grades and whatever, 19 for half the grades. So at least, we have a couple extra classrooms somewhere, but we sort of, as long as birth rates are low and populations are this size, we think of ourselves as an 18 section area. We don't need the answer now, but that's a cost reduction idea that could get on the list.
I don't think we can get down to 18 sections without class size changes. Is that not the case?
I think you would need to do a class size.
Getting a little tight.
Right, they're,
We did the math in this education.
we did, so.
So what's 18 times 25?
You can't really operate at 25, right?
It's, you can't
It's 18
reach that
times
level
24.
of
You
efficiency.
get to 21,
You
22
can't,
maybe.
your boundaries can't be that precise in order to do that.
Right.
If Dan says
19 to
there's
408 is
flexibility permissive.
21.5.
That's,
So if you
that's
target
People
tough.
have to opt into it, but
Yeah.
What's
it's a-
21.5 times 19?
It's not as clean cut as you would like, and that's why.
Boy.
No, I understand. I want on the list because I think it's a cost reduction idea. And the question is it worth the pain for the cost benefit analysis? Is there some cost reduction involved with taking whatever, 4 or 8 classrooms out of this and then at a later point, adding some on later if we need it, or dealing with the ongoing rebounding issues.
So I guess part of this also has to be, if this is a 20-year philosophy of bond issue, can that be solved in 5 years? Where do you get the money to put that in? I'm just asking the question.
The answer-
How do we fix the, if we're willing to eat it now, that's fine, but then
And there's
how
a
do we
lot of
fix that?
serial correlation with birth rates. I mean, birth rates are not their own independently, distributed random variable. I mean, it's, whatever's last year was is pretty close to what this year's is gonna be.
Yeah.
I think
No,
it's-
we're trending down right now. We have about a 2 to 3 year trend to where we foresee the bottom.
The bottom in
Within
birth rates
20
happened around
years,
13 or
it's going back
14.
Yeah, well, it's going back up.
But it is not, it is not going up to pre-recession levels. It is not there. We're still 10% below pre-recession levels.
Oh,
So,
but-
yeah,
but
so
I'm
our
saying it's going
fifth
up
grade is
now,
higher.
we're saying within 20 years.
I wouldn't assume that.
To me, a 20-year assumption of any of this stuff is like, there is such a wag to that tail when you get so far out. It's really hard to go that far out.
I do think that we should assume that if we have a 20-year bond outstanding, that we're not going to have another referendum and another bond in that period. So the next opportunity you have to sell more bonds is going to be after these are gone. And if you want, for example, to add 6 classrooms to handle the 19th section or the 20th section, it'd be problematic.
Well, I guess
We can do it
I'm
from
going
the
to challenge. I'm
savings.
going to challenge that for a moment for the purpose of discussion. Say that if you're going down, or if you had any operation cost savings, it's possible you can finance that out of ongoing operational savings, if there are any.
That's what I was
One,
gonna
if the
say,
district's
yeah.
already committed that operational as part of the overall.
Yeah, right. So it's, as I said, there's a cost benefit. And I don't know how much taking 6 classrooms out of this equation does to the cost. It may not be even worth it.
But it's an interesting philosophical question because it also points to what is the community, that really is what
That's
is
the
the
tolerance
community.
level.
The tolerance for that. I mean, I think the economic and efficiency case is absolutely there for planning more tightly. But the flexibility of, how often are we going to be changing our borders?
To say nothing of increasing class sizes,
Increasing
that's
class
even
sizes.
worse.
That
That-
and the
that
specter,
we already got
and the
from our
specter
survey,
that
that
people
they have-
raise
they're- once you go over
instantaneously of
25,
trailers.
Oh, yeah.
What if we have a
Yeah,
bump? We're
nobody
going to have trailers.
So,
Yeah.
And but there's a real case to be made. I'm not sure if it can be made in an election.
Trailers as the extra classes.
Yeah.
It's already been done in this district.
Oh, I know, but people hate it. I mean, it's in political campaigns, people raise it. It's going to be an issue for people.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock.
okay.
I don't want to keep going on, but we could do this till 2 in the morning, I'm sure.
So we should go through your email and have thoughts about the questions you raised there.
Yeah, whatever you're raising, send it to my email, I'll file them. As I get a list, I'll send them back out so you guys see what's coming in, go over for a couple of days. I am traveling over this weekend, but I'll be checking my email and be able to get stuff back out as I.
So we're meeting tomorrow night, right?
Meeting tomorrow night, I'll be phoning it.
What time tomorrow night?
7 to 9.
I'm phoning too.
Yeah, and John, if you can circulate a phone and.
Yeah, I'll be, because I'm gonna have more than one, I'll be issuing a
Yeah,
conference
because I
call.
might need to. I'm not
So
sure.
we'll be a conference call.
I'm late tomorrow, I got my son
We
playing.
need a motion to adjourn.
Yes,
Yes, we do.
Move to adjourn.
second.
There is a meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Say aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Don't worry, I'm not running for reelection.